Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zergy Draft Strategy, and in this podcast, Blake and I are going to talk about 10 sleepers that you have to know before you draft your fantasy team this year. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, the wind beneath my wings. It's Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
Hell yeah, buddy. Wind beneath your wings, my man. Have you ever seen, first off, have you heard the song by Bette Midler?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have you seen the movie? I think it's in Beaches. You know what I'm talking about here? This is definitely before your time. I've only seen it once, so you're off the hook there. Anyways, buddy, I'm happy to see you. I'm still sick as a dog. All right, I'm on more medication, just enough to choke a camel, basically. So that's good. My kidneys are struggling right now, but we're better together. All right, I've done some episodes on my own. It's better together, and I'm excited to get into it with you here, buddy. This is a great episode. This was our most listened to episode last season, and it should be again this year. These guys that we're going to talk about, they can help you win your leagues. I'm excited.
All right. Yeah. So just a little context. Everybody has a different definition of sleeper. So for ourselves here, we wanted to set a not so arbitrary line in the sand here. We set this at an APL ADP of 120 or more. So basically, the APL, if you haven't caught up yet, is the Apples and Geos Patron League, where we have well over 200 managers in there this year. It's going to be spectacular for our first ever season. But we've constructed the ADP from all of those drafts and put that together into one place. Thank you, Charles, from the Discord, for putting that together. Shout out. And 120 basically just means after the 10th round, right? 12-team league times 10, you get to 120. So after the 10th round is concluded, that's where we're drawing these numbers from. So anybody with an APL ADP of 120 or more is fair game. Without further ado, tops of the list, it's going to be Zeev Buium. I clicked through too fast. I got too excited.
Son of a gun, you did. You just ruined the surprise. Anyways,
I did. I ruined the surprise. Zeev Buium. Obviously, if you've listened to our content, you've heard me talk about Zeev Buium. I think that the exciting part here is really the opportunity. Power play 1 appears to be locked in. Like, he missed some time in camp, came back straight to power play 1 yet again. I don't see a scenario, honestly, in which he's off power play 1, honestly, at any point this season, unless he's truly just bad and can't play, which I really don't think is going to happen. This is a guy who had multiple terrific college seasons, putting up point per game. Really good numbers in college, right away as a freshman, steps into a huge role and just continues to produce wherever he's at. I do think that it's fair to wonder if he's going to get top 4 minutes, right? We have Jonas Brodin, who appears to be ahead of schedule. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to take the ice for the Wild. He hasn't, been a full part of, the game lines or he hasn't taken part in any preseason games, but he has been at training camp on the ice, taking some reps there. So Jonas Brodin should be back. They both play the same side of the ice, and so that's why you might see Zeev Buium demoted down if Jonas Brodin is good to go sooner rather than later. What I was pretty excited about was perhaps some runway for Buium to get some early minutes while Brodin was out and kind of prove himself, and then maybe just establish himself as a top pair defenseman right from the start with the Wild, similar to the way Brock Faber did, honestly. In this last game that the Wild played, preseason game, so they had some people out, but Buium was on the top pair with Faber, played the most minutes of any Minnesota Wild player. Didn't rack up any big stats or anything, just 1 shot on goal, 1 hit, nothing too crazy, but he was playing a ton of minutes already. They're obviously taking a really big look at this guy and seeing just how big of a part of the team he can be this year. The question I've got for you, Blake, is how high does the ceiling really go? If he really can stick, let's say, at least top 4 all season long, and he is power play 1 all season long, what do you think is reasonable in terms of this power play and what he can put together in terms of fantasy production?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question for sure. I think that something that Buium has in his back pocket is he's already a good two-way player. Like he's going to be very good offensively, but that he's not a one-trick pony. You know, like some of these young defensemen, like Brant Clark, come in and yeah, they're really only known for that one thing. Like Zeev Buium is he has more to offer. So I think that's something that will give him a leg up and a chance to get top 4 minutes. So I do believe that he will get top 4 minutes. Hopefully, around 20 minutes there. I projected him for less than that, but it's kind of a low projection there. I think for what he might be able to do on the season if things go really well, like I think there's 50-point upside for this player. We didn't project him that way, right? Because I think there's just too much variance. He's a young player. He's not even 20 years old yet. Does he lock down power play one? That's still in question. I think it's a pretty good chance that he's going to lock it down. There's no one else there that's better than Zeev Buium at that role. So yeah, I think 40 to 50 points is probably in the wheelhouse if he plays all 82 games and does stick on power play one. But it's pretty exciting though. Like imagine you're a young guy like this and you just step into not only just a power play, but a power play with some pretty damn elite players on it, aren't they?
Yeah, that is the exciting part for sure. It really could be that the backhand was the part that was really missing. We saw like just look at Toronto this past year. This power play was not going well. They take Riley off, they put Marner on, and now the power play is whipping pucks around. They're scoring goals again. What if Buium is a little bit of that key that unlocks a bit of this power play? Get Faber out of there, get Spurgeon out of there. These guys are not cut out for what Zeev Buium can do at the top of the unit. I really do think that he could be a bit of a key that unlocks a few things for that power play this year. And with the talent they have, they should be an upper echelon unit in the league. So I'm pretty excited about that. Hockey prospecting has really big comps on Zeev Buium in terms of his point scoring potential. The full comps are Chris Pronger, Brian Leach, Tony DeAngelo shows up there. Zayne Parekh, another rookie defenseman this year, also shows up as a comparable. Just basically really high end players are showing up based on the production that he had in the NCAA at a young age. So really good stuff. This is a guy who won't turn 20 until December, super young. So lots of runway there. I just love the player. I think that if he did get, 20 minutes a night with Power Play 1 all year, I do think there is 55-point upside here. I'm not sure about the peripherals. That's not something that we've really seen out of Buium at the NHL level yet. And so it might be a little bit of a low shot volume. It might not be a big time hitter, a big time blocker. And so some of that might hold him back. But in terms of the raw point potential, I do think it runs pretty high. APL ADP 135. Got to have some Zeev Buium on your teams this year. All right, I already spoiled it, Blake, but we'll get over to the player that you wanted to bring forward here, and that is Josh Norris.
Oh, yeah. What a segue, buddy. Way to just steal my thunder. The guy came to my house. I made a beautiful sandwich. I put some gabagool on there. All right. I put the thing down. I'm up to my mouth. Nate just slapped it out. He doesn't care. All right. Never mind about that. We're talking about Joshua Norris. All right. The Buffalo Sabres. This is a guy I'm pretty damn excited about this season. It's a guy I noticed early on that I think I was going to be in on, right? Just looking at the roster construction there in Buffalo, I saw a pathway to some opportunity and minutes, and it looks like that's going to be the case with Josh Norris. So far in the preseason training camp, he's been line one with Tage and Zach the Butler Benson. Pretty damn nice. And then on power play one as well. So really nice stuff. I think, when you look at his ADP, his APL ADP is 184.7. That show ain't no good. I mean, it is good if you're getting him there. My God, I feel like this is a guy that really does have some offensive potential and some peripheral floor as well. And I'll get into that in a second. But I just think the reason that he's fallen so far is because we still haven't really seen what he can do, right? Especially over a full season. Like, yeah, he has an extensive injury history, hasn't finished a full season in the NHL. I know I'm really selling you on this guy right now, but by all accounts, the guy's happy, healthy, heading into the season. He's primed to walk into this huge role, which is really nice. And I think I look at his previous play there with Ottawa, and yeah, he didn't have a really secure offensive role there. He was kind of in the middle six, right? And there was a season where he did get power play one pretty consistently, and that was the season where he really popped off. He had 55 points in 66 games. And he had 16 power play goals that year. 16 power play goals. That's that's elite. Like that's high end power play performance. We really like that. So, coming to the Sabres, he's going to get a better opportunity. And I projected him for 61 points. I think that's, we had a good conversation on Norris. Like, I think you see that outcome potentially, right? You didn't project it that way, but it makes sense, right? And this is including 20 power play points as well, over 200 shots, 128 hits, 58 blocks. Like, that'll play, right? And I really feel like that's reasonable considering the opportunity in front of him here. So one thing I did want to mention before I kick to you here, Nate, is just some of the underlying metrics with Josh Norris here. He's shown to be like a really solid net front player, right? And a high level forechecker. That's what he brings to the table. And I can absolutely see him and Zach Benson just wreaking havoc, causing chaos around the net, puck popping out to Tage for some 1-2s and just getting to biz. Like, I really like that line construction there. And I also expect Josh Norris to get an increase in time on ice with the Sabres from what he had with the Ottawa Senators. So yeah, injury risk valid for sure. But at this ADP, who the hell cares? There's no reason to not take a chance on Josh Norris. If he gets injured, you punt him to the curb. So I don't know. What do you think, Nate? Am I selling you on Josh Norris here?
Yeah, I absolutely see the ceiling scenario for Josh Norris. I think some of my projection was just the Lindy Ruff problem, where we've seen Lindy Ruff not elevate guys that we thought should get that elevation, but early in preseason, early returns, looks like Ruff is, he's listened to the pod, he's taken our
I
advice,
think so.
he's
Yeah.
elevating the correct people, and the Buffalo Sabres will make the playoffs for the first time in
That
a
might have
long
been the
time
tipping
because of
point
it.
there, Nate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was probably, he can tell us the exact date that he started listening to the podcast, but that'll be the point at which Sabres fans can look back on as the reason they made the playoffs. Uh, anyway, Norris is a guy that I do have a lot of time for. I think he is also a pretty darn good shooter opposite Tage on the power play. So if he can stick there, Darlene, elite power play quarterback, feed in both sides. They can rip it cross seam. They can do a lot of different stuff. They got Alex Tuck in there, who I think should have been there all year last year and wasn't. Get him in there, keep the puck moving around. Jason Zucker was actually probably the most effective player in his role in that power play last year on this whole Sabres team, which is kind of wild to say given the talent that they have. But him being there, I'm actually pretty happy about given what he put on display last year. So I actually think this power play unit looks really quite dangerous on paper. And I only had Norris projected in my projection, which came out to 50 points, that was with only 15 power play points. So I definitely see a scenario in which Norris rips 25 power play points this year and everything totally clicks. That's definitely within the wheelhouse for me here. And with a little bit more even strength time on ice, like there's a lot of scenarios in which this actually works out really well. Like you said, Norris does have like repeat injury issues, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I do take notice of, like same injury, same shoulders, stuff like that. But again, at the ADP that we're talking about here, 185 basically on APL drafts, that costs you nothing to find out. Line one, power play one guys with Tage Thompson do not grow on trees. Josh Norris should be going probably at least 4 or 5 rounds higher than he is currently. All right, next up, Cutter Gauthier. Now, this is a player I've been talking about for a long time. I actually went back. We did a flagship show last year on March 30th, Blake. I'm sure you remember this very keenly.
Yep.
But our under the hood player that I had identified for that podcast was Cutter Gauthier. At that point in the last 10 games, he had scored 3 goals and 5 assists with 13:43 average time on ice. And in that time frame, he was 9th in shots per 60, 19th in individual scoring chances for per 60. This was with Alex Killorn as one of his line mates, and basically no power play time, like not even power play 2. Greg Cronin really didn't like Cutter Gauthier, didn't like the fact that he was really good at doing things in the offensive zone, putting pucks in the net. Greg Cronin said, can't have any of that, sit your ass down on the bench. And Cutter Gauthier finally this year should get the chance to unleash himself on the NHL. Has been playing in the top 6 pretty much exclusively here in the early going. I do think Joel Quenneville will recognize the talent here. And yeah, I just see a lot of scenarios in which this goes really well for Cutter Gauthier this year. The one thing you can point to right now is that he's not on power play 1 or line 1 to start the season. How much does that hold back Cutter Gauthier from true like rocket ship sleeper status for you, Blake?
It's a little bit, right? But it's still so early. Like, we like to overreact to things that, benefit us in our takes. And we also like to, kind of overreact to things that don't benefit our takes. So I feel like Cutter Gauthier, we don't know where he's actually going to line up and how it's going to look in season. But we do know that this guy is a per-minute beast. All right. He generates shots and chances at a pretty damn high level. He was able to do a lot with very little last season. He's got decent periffs as well. Good peripheral floor. I just think, again, with the ADP, the risk here with Cutter Gauthier is still pretty low, and I think they need a player of this kind of mold, right? A little bit more sandpaper, a little kind of that grimy style. He's got a great shot too, and he's a great skater. So yeah, I'd like to see him obviously up in the lineup, but truth be told, we don't know what Joel Quenneville is going to do yet in terms of his lines and how he's going to deploy power plays. Like, so far, the power plays have been a 1A, 1B situation, which, yeah, we probably want a more like a true top power play, which I think that's what Joel Quenneville has done in the past, and that's what he probably will do here this upcoming season. So, yeah, it's kind of a wait and see with Cutter Gauthier. What's your level of risk here? Because this is a guy that you've been on for a long time, and I really do feel confident that if given the opportunity, Cutter Gauthier is going to smash. Do you think, like, how much, same question to you, how much does that sort of affect your valuation and where, like, if and when you're going to be drafting Cutter Gauthier?
Yeah, I think that it is a situation that you have to take into account is that the early returns, you want to see them on that Troy
Yeah.
Terry, Leo Carlson top line in place of Chris Kreider. Like, that's what you wanted to see coming out of camp, and we're not getting that right now. Um, I I don't know if I see it the same way as you do in terms of 1A, 1B. I don't know if you're doing that based off minutes or what are you thinking based on that?
Oh, just like the minutes that I've seen in some of the
Okay.
preseason games here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, nothing more than that. Yeah.
Sure. So I can see that for sure, but if you just look at the personnel, it really does seem a lot more to me like Gauthier is on power play 2, and the other guys on power play 1 are all the guys you would expect. It's Carlson, it's Terry, it's Lacombe, it's Kreider, it's Granlund, who they acquired in the offseason. Like, the guys, and then you have Gauthier playing with Killorn, and it was Colangelo in this game, Nestorenko. Like, it
Come
was
on.
the power play 2, right?
Yep.
For sure, it was the power play 2. So that is obviously not a great spot for him to start in, but I feel like I just have so much confidence in the player. The underlying profile is so good at such a young age here, in such a bad situation last year. Like, I just have all the time in the world for a guy who's able to put that kind of per minute stuff on record in his rookie year in the league in a bad situation. I just think the cream rises to the top over the course of the season. And yeah, the early going might not be the best. Maybe he gets dropped in some leagues in the early going. Maybe he's not on power play 1. But also, Mason McTavish signs today, and so that should shore up the top 6. That should give him a better center to play with. I think Granlund was playing center, but maybe Granlund flips over to the wing. He's played left, center, right
Yep.
wing, wherever he needs to be for the last number of years, wherever he's been. I just think there's a lot of ways in which the even strength lines look pretty good, and he can get to biz regardless of who he's with at even strength. Would I prefer he's with Terry, who I think is a great player? Yes, but I think he can do a lot of stuff with other players on this squad as well. And then over the course of time, I do think he supplants somebody on the top power play unit, unless it's just like lights out from day one, which would be pretty hard to predict at this point in the season, given how bad it was last year. So overall, I'm just kind of trusting in the talent of the player. It's something that I've talked about before is I want to believe in players with talent, because when talent does meet opportunity, that's when you get the true pop-offs. And so I think Cutter Gauthier has all the talent in the world. Whether or not he gets the opportunity is still up for debate, but if and when that happens, I do think that he will make good on it.
Let's go.
All right, Blake, this is a player you've been talking about for a long time. You're pretty into one Mr. Kent Johnson.
Oh, yeah. I love Kent Johnson. I talked about him last offseason in kind of my players of interest there, just as a guy that looked good to me, interesting to me under the hood. And I certainly couldn't have predicted what actually happened with Kent Johnson in last season, where Dean Evason just kind of gave him the keys and other young talent on the Blue Jackets and said, like, here, go do what you do, right? And Johnson really took that and ran. Like, the guy popped off. He had 57 points in 68 games. That's a 69-point pace, folks. Very nice. And big time minutes too. Like he went from 13.33 in 23-24 to 17.18 last year with a truly efficient Columbus Blue Jackets team, right? So it's just a guy that I saw something in, and I'm really glad that he did hit last year. So why the hell is ADP 154.9 in the APL? I feel like, it's like, yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, no, this guy didn't fool us. I think he's good to go, right? So I think that his APL ADP is better than his Yahoo ADP, which is 176, which, again, I think there's so much value there. I just don't understand it, though. I mean, this is a guy that has triple eligibility on Yahoo. Really nice piece. He's a staple on Power Play 1. And he gets to play the wing with up-and-coming Adam Fantilli on the second line here, who's likely to take another step this year. I think most people would agree with that. And he's going to get Boone Jenner on his line. That's excellent, right? Boone Jenner's going to play line 2 instead of who was it? I think it was a JVR or something. I don't even know. But yeah, it was just some spare parts there on the second line. I just think that guys like Johnson and Kirill Marchenko, they were really muzzled under Pascal Vincent, right? And Dean Evason really leaned into these guys and fed them big minutes. And it went really well, right? Johnson himself had a 71% power play share last year, which is very unexpected. Granted, he only popped for 15 power play points, but Columbus's power play was only 22nd in the league in conversion and in expected goals for per 60. So not really a wagon of a power play. I think there's a little headroom there. But in terms of projection for Johnson, I got him for 25 goals and 40 assists this year, right? And 20 power play points. So, at this ADP, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like that's something I'm going to smash all day. Yes, I think the only issue with Kent Johnson, he's an absolute dancing boy, right? This guy's doing the river dance out there. He's dodging hits left and right. So, you're not getting anything really on that end. So if he's not scoring, he's pretty much giving you donuts, right? Because he's not a big shooter either. But I believe in the players, similar to Cutter Gauthier. Like, I believe in the talent of the player, and I don't see why his role would change this upcoming season here. He's got Boone Jenner out there, and I think Boone should be able to make more space for these kids, right, to get the biz.
Yeah.
That's what Nate and I say when we're about to cross the streams, folks. We say, this will be a whiz. Let's get to biz, right, Nate? Do we do that?
That's probably the corniest thing.
What are you talking about? You said it, Nate. For
crossing the streams, Lord.
I mean, I'm not trying to out you here, but I mean, Nate says that. He looks me dead in my eye and he says, this will be a whiz. Let's get to biz. And then we just cross the streams, and high five each other as we do, right? But yeah, God. Anyways, I'm excited about Kent Johnson. I think he's absolutely worth your draft pick at this ADP. And I picked him up in the cupful here pretty early. I think I picked him up 165 or it might have been earlier than that, 150. I just believe in the player. I think that he has 70 to 75 point upside if everything hits, right? I didn't project it that way, obviously, but that's what I think about Kent Johnson. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I'm into the player. I have a similar projection. 23 goals, 40 assists, 63 points, 19 power play points there. I do think the power play is pretty secure. Like, Evason really liked him on the power play last year. Early returns right back there. It's Boone Jenner as the fifth, not Adam Fantilli for those keeping score at home. But Kent Johnson, I think, is locked into that power play role. I think they really value his distribution ability, his ability to manipulate the box and get people open. And I think that they should. I think that is a pretty unique skill for Kent Johnson. And that's something that plays on the power play specifically. So I think that's safe. I think, yeah, you made the point. Fantilli takes a step this year. Who's coming along for the ride? It's Kent Johnson, who might elevate Fantilli on his own to that next level. It might be Kent Johnson. So I think there's a lot of ways that this does break right. He did have some probably unsustainable percentages last year, but I mean, we could get even more strength time on ice this year. That wouldn't be too shocking. They could get more time on the power play. Like, they didn't get a lot of time on the power play last year, which may have contributed to the fact that it wasn't a very good power play, just not a lot of reps, as many as other teams got. So that could be a way in which they get a little bit more ceiling, a lot of these Columbus players this year. I just am never going to be out on a guy who shows out this well and a lot of the stuff that we like. A lot of the microstats, the high danger assists that he's generating, this kind of stuff all looks really good for Kent Johnson. All right, my next player is Jimmy Snuggles. Jimmy Snuggerud. Had to bring this guy up. It's been a pretty steady drumbeat out of St. Louis. Like, this guy is going to be line one and power play one or 1A, whatever you want to call it, with Rob Thomas. Like, he's just going to be attached to Rob Thomas. Wherever Rob Thomas goes, Jimmy Snuggerud is going to go as well. And that's a pretty great place to be. Rob Thomas is conservatively one of the 10 best playmakers in the NHL. And Jimmy Snuggerud just gets to ride shotgun for his rookie year and clap home a whole bunch of empty net goals as the goaltender slides the other way to cover Rob Thomas. So I think that that's just a terrific place to be. APL ADP 210.6. So he's basically going undrafted. And it's a line one power play one, and it's a player, and it's a good spot to be. I think that he can hang on to that for the majority of the year. I think that the Blues kind of started to figure out what they liked last year, and I think Snuggerud fits into those plans this year. It really seems like Jim Montgomery likes it. Likes what Snuggerud brings to the table. You saw it in the postseason. You're seeing it right away in training camp this year, going right back to the well with this player. I just think that this might be a guy who is going to get even more early season looks than we thought was possible. And it might just be a great player for fantasy right from day one. What do you think, Blake?
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I'm staring him down in a couple of my drafts, and it's a I feel pretty confident in that he's going to, at the very least, get the deployment needed to do something for fantasy, right? Whether he pops off to a level, like, yeah, that's up to him, and like there's a lot of luck involved, but this guy is an offensive player. So first off, like, yeah, he's got offensive acumen, and they're putting him in an offensive situation. And I agree with you about Robert Thomas. The guy is elite at playmaking. He's one of the best in the game. So, to have him as your center, like, that's a great place to start. Also, I mean, just digging into some of his stuff here at Elite Prospects, like, some of his track data, like, this is a guy that in his junior career and stuff, he showed out in shots on goal per 60, expected goals per 60. Like, he does that. And not only that, also defensive play. Like, this is a guy that can play in all three zones. And I love rookies like that. That's something I've been trying to think about a little bit more as I evaluate players and rookies, especially, who I think might be able to do something, is like, they need to be out on the ice. And for them to be out on the ice, they have to have the coach's trust. And to have the coach's trust, you either need to be the most elite offensive player, like a guy like Matvei Michkov, or you need to be able to play well in all three zones right off the bat. And I think that Jimmy Snuggerud is that type of player. Like, and that's proven to me by the fact that they trotted him out for 17 minutes average time on ice in 7 playoff games. Right? That's crazy. Like, rookie in the year, like, he only played, I think, 7 in the regular season there, or whatever it was. And then so he's only had 14 games, and he's playing at the highest level possible with the best players on the team. So lots to like about Jimmy Snuggles. I think that, I don't know. I want to go high on this. I'm not going to, but I think like 50 to 55 points is probably like where this guy lives, if that production holds. And if he really pops off, maybe we're looking at a 60 to 65 point player.
Yeah, definitely has the pedigree, 135 points in 119 college games for Minnesota. So it's definitely a guy who has that kind of pedigree behind him. All right, we reached the halfway point here, which means I got to talk about the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide. This thing has been flying off the virtual shelves, and you'd better run and grab one of the last copies virtually available to you at patreon.com/applesginos. We've gotten lots of great reviews. You can ask around in the Apples and Ginos Discord if it's worth the money, and I'm pretty sure you will get a resounding yes. We're really proud of this product, and if your draft is still coming up and you need a quick primer on all these teams, all these players, this is the place to get it. Also want to make quick mention of the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Draft live stream schedule. So upcoming, Blake and I have a bunch of drafts. I am trying to live stream as many of my drafts as possible. So I have a $100 buy-in Bears Cats draft that I'm going to be live streaming on Tuesday at 9:15 p.m. EST. I've got the Tier 1 APL draft coming up. That's the only APL league that has not actually drafted so far. So that is coming up on Thursday of this week, October 2nd at 9:30 p.m. EST. Then on Sunday at 1:30 p.m. EST, you can lock in for 4 hours with me as I do the Tier 1 Kakupful auction draft. That is going to be a beefer for sure, but it will be a really good time and very good if you are interested in auction content specifically. And then Blake is going to handle the Fantasy Puck Content Creators League draft this year. Both Blake and I are in this, but I have an engagement that's probably going to force me to close out the draft on my phone. And so Blake is going to handle some live stream duties. That is Monday, October 6th at 7 p.m. EST. So if you are looking for live stream fantasy drafts with a great overall vibes and great guys and handsome people on screen at all times, yeah, that's the place to be. I ran out of juice at the end there.
This guy jacks you up. I'm ready to go. I'll run through a damn wall. I don't even care.
All right, Blake, let's take it away. You stole this guy from me, but in the end, I can't be too mad because you're talking about one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about Troy Terrence. Okay, Terry. Okay, he's a good egg, this guy. All right, very good player. That's terrible analysis. But obviously, yeah, this guy's been a favorite of ours, of yours, Nate, in particular at A&G here. But I feel like this year, he could actually be a staple in your lineups because I feel like we talk about him a lot on our waiver shows. Like Troy Terry's still available. He's under 50% rostered. You got to go get him, right? He's our streamer deathmatch pick every single time. I think this year is the year where he actually gets over the hump and he sticks on your roster, right? I just think that, like we've seen so far in training camp and preseason, Terry's been getting line one power play, one deployment, which is great, right? So that's what we hoped for. So I think deployment and opportunity look like it's going to be there. He's playing with Leo Carlsson, which I also think is a really good thing. Troy Terry in the past has said that he really enjoys playing with Leo Carlsson, and he was upset when he wasn't playing with Leo Carlsson, right? I mean, this guy spent most of the season with the spare parts, like Frank Vetrano and Ryan Strome. Okay, yeah. That show ain't no good. All right. Leo Carlsson is another player who I think is going to take a step this year, right? He's going to get more minutes, and he's an offensive player. And I think it's going to really benefit Troy Terry. So I think it's probably going to be Troy Terry, Leo Carlsson, Chris Kreider. That's what they're looking at. Chicken Necks, which would be a massive upgrade. You also throw in the fact that Troy Terry, he looks good under the hood, right? He always has. He's a big IPP guy. Routinely with IPP percentages in the 70th percentile, right? Which means he's a huge part of the offense when he's out there. His shots have fallen off a little bit over the past few years, but things like shot assists and chance assists in the microstats, they continue to climb. So he's still generating a ton of offense. He's a zone entry king, all right? Consistently entering the offensive zone with control, all right? Which usually leads to a scoring chance of some sort. So he does that. Obviously, Nate, you have a big projection for Troy Terry here this year, and I'm pretty close to you. I baked in a lot of the variance of having a new coach, new systems, potentially new line mates, but still, I think Terry, this is a guy that's elite off the rush. He's able to drive his own line, and with better players, we should see better results on the scoreboard. So, last thing I'll say about Troy Terry, like Ducks power play has been heinous, right, under Greg Cronin, right? And the hope is that they take a step out of the basement there. They don't need to be world beaters. Just get out of the basement, right? And hopefully Joel Quenneville sort of allows, it's kind of like Dean Evison, right? Allows some of this young talent to play to their strengths, make some plays. And I could see Troy Terry hitting career highs in power play points this season if he's able to stay on that top line all year. This guy's paced for 70 points twice in his career. And I think that might be on tap here this upcoming season. So I don't know. What do you think, Nate? Talk to me about your boy, Troy Terry.
Huge fan of Troy Terry. 26 goal, 44 assists, 70-point projection for me this year. Just over 200 shots. Doesn't hit or block, but you're not going to need it with the off nights that he provides. I think you said it. I'm anticipating that this is a player who will live in your lineup all year long. And with those off nights, it's just going to be so clutch to have a guy like this that you set and forget, and he's playing for you. Every time that you need somebody on those off nights, you've already got Troy Terry. Frees up your streaming to do a bunch of other stuff. For this projection, it includes 21 power play points, 18.5 minutes average time on ice. Honestly, as long as he's on power play 1 and line 1, the way that's looking right now in camp, I think that's pretty safe. I don't think that's out over our skis at all there. And so the rest is really just how efficient he is. And he has been really, really efficient, at least in terms of garnering his share of the offense that's being created. And so, like you said, spent almost all of last year, like a truly heinous amount of even strength time on ice was spent with Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano last year. Frank Vetrano, he likes to chuck pucks, so like the shots for per 60, on ice shots for per 60 might look pretty good with Frank Vetrano on your line, but it's just not a recipe for efficiency. And we saw that last year. This year, you get a guy who's basically the complete opposite in Leo Carlsson, and hopefully they stick together. I really think that Chris Kreider, as much as I'd love to see Cutter Gauthier and Troy Terry go to work, just because I think they might be the two most skilled players on this roster at this current moment, I would think Chris Kreider is a really good foil for
Yeah.
Troy Terry as well. A guy who can go straight to the net while Troy Terry dawdles around in the high offensive zone, opens up the defense, and Chris Kreider's backdoor for a tap in. I think that you're going to see a lot of that this year if those guys stick together, and you're going to see a lot of it on the power play as well. So I am a big fan of Troy Terry. I do think that he could be actually kind of a key to unlock your roster flexibility for this year with the Anaheim off nights as well. A guy that I do think can stick in your lineup, that you only have to spend, what is it, 136 APL ADP. Get him down there, 12th round Troy Terry, and you're loving life. Next up is Zayne Parekh. I have to talk about this player just because I think the ceiling here is so ridiculous. I think you look at what Zayne Parekh has done from a goal scoring standpoint in the OHL compared to a lot of other players, and it's just truly elite stuff. Whether or not that translates into fantasy production in year one in Calgary is definitely up for debate. I'm not suggesting that this is a locked and loaded thing. He's just going to walk right in, top pair, top power play. That's not necessarily going to happen here for Parekh. I do think that Ryan Huska might be, a little bit of the old school coach who, even though he's not an old school guy necessarily, he might have that bent where if you're not playing good defense, you're not getting out there. And so I do have that concern with Parekh, but the ceiling here is so high that I just have to be in on the player. Talking about talent, what happens if Parekh does get the opportunity? I think it's just lights out and nobody's close in terms of the sleepers down here at defense, in terms of what they might be able to provide versus what I feel really confident Zayne Parekh can provide. He's playing in a preseason game here as we're recording. He's got at least one goal. I haven't checked since we started recording, but doing stuff in the preseason for whatever that's worth. Big questions, right? How many even strength minutes is he really going to get? They have two other right-handed defensemen there, Mackenzie Weegar, Rasmus Anderson. Those are their best two defensemen. And so is he really going to see much even strength time on ice? I think that really is a question. I do think when they're down and they need some goals, like who are you going to put up there? It's going to be Weegar, probably. It's going to be some Anderson, but it's also going to be a lot of Zayne Parekh if they need to generate offense in the end of games. If they're down by one, if they're down by two, I think Calgary could be down in some games this year. I think they maybe got a little bit lucky to be in the position where they were last year, to be really close at the end of the year to a wild card spot. And this is not just me, there are a fair number of other analysts out there saying like we could see a bit of a pullback from Calgary this year if they don't take a step in a bunch of other metrics. So either, to me, Zayne Parekh is part of that step forward for Calgary as a team, or they're chasing a bunch of games and Zayne Parekh is the answer to how do you generate more offense than you've been able to from this point. So big question though, Blake, is power play one. So start there. Power play one over Weegar. Does he get it from day one? Does he take over halfway through the season? Where do you think that line comes in?
I don't know. Oh my God. You know what? Like the fantasy analyst in me wants it, obviously, like power play one right off the bat. I see this guy a lot differently, like than Zeev Buium, right? Zeev Buium to me can kind of do it all, right? I think he can slot into a lineup a little easier. Whereas Zayne Parekh, he's not known for his defense, right? He's known for his offense, and he's elite at that. But we've seen other kind of molds of this style of player, like Brandt Clark, right, is another one where it's like the guy's talent is otherworldly, right? But he can't get out on the ice. So it's going to be interesting. I think, yeah, I could see him getting a shot at power play one right off the bat, right? Or in the first week here, if they get off to a slow start with Weegar there, they'll throw Parekh in there and we can see what's what. that power play is not a wagon by any means, right? I think it makes sense to get a player like Parekh on there to kind of set things up and get a little bit more creativity going, a little bit more puck movement. But we'll see what happens there. But I have the same concern as you. Like, is he going to be one of these guys that, yeah, maybe he gets power play one, but he gets sheltered third pair minutes? That could be the case, and that could really cap what he can do for fantasy. But again, the talent of the player, like, my God, that's why fantasy analysts are not GMs or coaches, right? Because we just be like, Parekh, you get out there and you play 30 minutes. I don't care, right? Like, let's see what happens. But yeah, it could be a little bit of a slower burn with Parekh to me. But that said, again, at the ADP, what's the harm, right? It's a swing that I think you absolutely need to take. This is a guy with all the offensive upside in the world on a team that needs offense. So, 1 + 1 does equal 2 sometimes. And I hope that that's the case. Ryan Huska put this man on the power play. Like, I don't think he needs that much to really be valuable for fantasy, like 18 to 20 minutes and power play one. And we're looking at a 45-point player, right? Maybe more if he really gets cooking. So that's what I'm hoping for. I don't see like a nuclear option yet, just because of some of his defensive shortcomings, but I don't know. I could be wrong on that too. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with everything you said there. I don't know if he gets it from day one, and so it might be more of a watch list player depending on what we see early on in terms of the deployment. If he is getting the full Brant Clark treatment, like 15, 16 minutes a night from third pair and no power play, then yeah, of course you can't really go in on that. But he might be the guy to watch as soon as he's on that power play. You jump. And there is the looming Rasmus Andersson trade. If Andersson is moved, if Calgary's season kind of goes south, then what do you think they're going to do? They're going to move Andersson, and they're going to see what Parekh's got. They're going to elevate his role and see what he can do. So there are a lot of situations I can see where he's a lot more valuable in the second half of the season than he is in the first half of the season as well. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. At ADP 159 in the APL, that's a place I feel pretty comfortable finding out what's going on here. 14th round, yeah, I'll take a shot at one of the highest scoring junior defensemen we've seen come out in recent memory. All right, next up, Blake, you got Trevor Zegras. Tell me why we should be getting excited about Big Z.
Big Ziggy. Well, first off, his ADP is 192.6. I mean, damn. Like, we're looking at a line 2 power play one guy. I would think. I mean, that's kind of the way it's trending here in preseason. So, like, right off the bat, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think people forget that Zegras was on the come up in a big way before injuries and poor coaching sort of derailed his career a little bit, right? This guy had 2 seasons where he paced for 67 points, 66 points, and he looked prime for more, right? I think both you and I had a big projection on Zegras here. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where we were kind of in the mid 70s, I think, with him, or low 70s. And I think that's still in the wheelhouse, right? But he just found himself in the doghouse, Greg Cronin's doghouse. All right. That sounds like a horrible place to be. And had a couple of bad injuries as well. He broke his ankle. Remember that? That was terrible. But yeah, he just, when he came back, he just didn't look like the same player with Anaheim, right? This is a guy that before he was doing Michigans out there, he was flipping pucks over to Sonny Milano for batting him in. And then when he came back, it just seemed like he was laboring. He was kind of pissed off. So I'm a big believer in sort of the mental aspect as well, like the vibes going from Anaheim now to Philly, who has Rick Tocchet, who I can attest to and speak that he's a player's coach, right? The vibes will be high on that team. With Rick Tocchet at the helm. He's a good communicator. He's a relationship coach. And it also looks like Zegras and Tocchet have built some chemistry right off the bat. Like, I think he calls him Taco or something.
Yeah.
Which is, I wouldn't be saying that to Rick Tocchet's face, but that's fine. So I think, and the other thing too, like the more important thing is he's playing with Matvei Michkov, right? And it looks like that's what they're going to do. He's centering a line with Michkov and Owen Tippett. That'll play, right? What? I mean, that's crazy. I think that alone should warrant him being on this sleeper list. And to top that off, I think he's going to get power play one as well to start the year. So I think there's a lot of things I like about Zegras. Like, 2 of the 3 things that I look for in a player, right? Deployment opportunity. Zegras is going to have that going into the year. So as far as like the underlying metrics, pretty damn good as well, right? This guy shows out as you would expect in things like shot assists, chance assists, controlled zone entries, right? He does that. He's driving play very well. The problem in Anaheim was that he was playing with Alex Killorn. Okay, like, yeah, you can set up all the plays you want. If you're passing to Alex Killorn, it's going to die on the end of his stick. Unfortunately, sorry, Mr. Killorn, but now he's going to be with Michkov. Michkov is going to be a beast this season. If just in preseason here tonight, he played 20 minutes. Like, we're going to get 20-minute Michkov out there, folks. We could be looking at a point per game. More, I don't even know. I love Michkov, and just the fact that Zegras is an offensive talented player in his own right, gets to play with Michkov, and they're out there after practice whipping pucks to each other. I like that type of stuff, right? That's all positive stuff. It shows that this guy's at the very least locked in, right? Anything can happen, but he's locked in. And, I will say one more thing on Zegras. His defense improved in last year in Anaheim. In certain metrics that I look in, like things like zone exits with control. Like, he's supporting the defense more. He's skating the puck out of the zone very well, connecting the D to the other wingers. He did that really well, better last year than the previous 3 years. Things like zone retrievals as well, right? He's doing that, which is not normal for him. So I think that's going to buy him a little bit of good grace with Rick Tocchet as well. He's a guy that's kind of taking responsibility in all three zones as well. So I just think the value is too good for a player with 70 to 80 point upside here. He's only 24. He's good to go. All right. He is C only, right? So is Josh Norris. So that's something to consider, right? But I mean, that's why we still do fade centers. I think fading centers is still viable, right? Depending which centers you're fading, right? Probably should have faded Barkov this year. But you got a guy like Zegras there or Norris there. Like, these are power play one guys that are, going to do something for fantasy. So I'm just excited about Zegras this year, and I'm going to try and get him on as many teams as I can.
Yeah, I think you nailed it all there. I love the clip of Michkov and Zegras talking to the social media people after the practice, in which they stayed on for like an extra 40 minutes or whatever it was. They're talking to the social media people and they're having a good time. Vibes are definitely high at this time. In this game that just concluded, Zegras plays 1928 goal and then assist, plays with Michkov the whole time on the top power play, scores on the power play.
Let's go.
Like, what's not to like about what you're seeing in the early returns for Trevor Zegras here? We know about the talent. Now, can he just make good on it? Actually, the more I think about it, the more I really like the situation, especially if he does stick with Michkov, who I think we all agree is the ceiling case high-end player on this squad. But you get Couturier and Konechny taking the tough minutes, taking the top line away from the other team, and then you let Zegras and Michkov go head-to-head with the other team's second line, and that's a matchup that they might actually just dominate a fair number of nights at even strength, and then they get the power play, and like in the last minute of games where they're trying to win it, it is going to be Zegras, Michkov, Konechny. Those guys are all going to be out there. So I just think that it is actually trending towards a really good situation for Zegras, where we thought it could be, but we hadn't really seen the proof, and now we're starting to see the proof, and that's really exciting. All right, my last one here is going to be Will Smith. I am starting to get even more excited about Will Smith than I had been. I've talked about this in a number of spots. Just playing the way he did at the end of last year has made me feel really bullish about the player. So many times we see a player, a rookie, a young player, a teenager come into the league with a lot of expectation. Yeah, it's San Jose and the lights are maybe not so bright, but the player wants to do well. The coaches expect him to do well. The fans expect him to do well. And it doesn't go right at the beginning of the year. He's getting the load management treatment. He's not playing in every game, and he just can't get on track. Last half of the year, the guy goes off. And he goes off alongside one of the most exciting young talents that we have in the game in Macklin Celebrini. They have all the chemistry in the world on and off the ice. They're like best pals. Everything looks like gravy. Then in the summer, we get this quote that they want to try him back at center, and we're all like, "Oh, that means no Celebrini time at even strength." Now we get to camp, and they're like, "Oh, actually, no, we're gonna play him at wing all year." And so now that means that playing with Celebrini is back on the table. That's what we've seen in the preseason games in terms of the deployment so far. It really looks like it is going to be the Smith and Celebrini show once again this year. He's going to be power play one on this team. I think he gets a lot more minutes this year. Like last year, they had some of these guys. They had the Granlund still on the team for a good chunk of last year. It was really only after those guys got shipped out that Will Smith got the extra minutes. I think this year he could get even more than that. I think I was a little bit higher, maybe 6 or 7 points higher on Smith than you were, at 63 points on my projection for him this year. That was with 18 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice. It wouldn't shock me if he's in the 19 to 20 range this year if everything goes right for Will Smith. And if that happens, then we could be talking about a 70 plus point player. And I feel pretty confident about that, because I do think that Celebrini is good enough to just dominate other teams' top lines solo, and Will Smith is good enough to play alongside a player like that and be the offensive dynamo portion on the wing that you kind of need when a Celebrini is playing good defense, good two-way game, and Smith can be the game breaker on the side. I just think everything sets up really well for them. They also have Toffoli, who's a great finisher. They have Skinner, who's a reasonable finisher as well. If you don't care about defense, which San Jose has not exhibited the what most teams might exhibit in terms of the care and attention to the defensive zone under Ryan Warsofsky, then maybe Jeff Skinner is just fine on that line. We've seen a little bit of that in the preseason here as well. And so you have a couple options there as guys who can actually finish some of these plays for these two as well. And so they don't have to just do it themselves and drag along, Colin Graff or Adam Gaudette or somebody who gets elevated. They have a couple options to play left wing with them there. I just think there's a lot of signs pointing towards Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini being the guys for this team moving forward. I haven't even spoken about William Eklund because he's been kind of left to drive the second line on his own so far in the early going here, but that's also an option and will be on the power play, we would expect. So I just think there's a lot of scenarios in which this goes really, really right for Will Smith this year. Really bullish on what he put on tape at the end of last year. Really bullish on the coaching staff being able to identify that in a player, what he needed, get him right mentally, and then he just takes off at the back end of the year. I just think that speaks volumes to me about what I expect from the coaching staff to put him in the right positions to succeed again this year. And I'm pretty excited about the player and the situation.
It's nice to see a team sort of taking that approach. It pisses us off for fantasy, right? Because we're all like, Will Smith, he's going to pop off, going to be a great rookie. And then they're, giving him the load management, right? Like if you look at his first, half of the season, he was playing 14 minutes average time on ice. And then the last quarter of the year, 18:39, right? Which is probably, that's probably his floor this year, right? And I think, I love that you brought this player up again. I did have a lower projection, but I was projecting him as the C2. I was projecting him as the center there, not away from Macklin Celebrini. So that's really it. Macklin Celebrini he's an elite talent. I think Celebrini is a late third, early fourth rounder this season, right? In a lot of formats. Like he's that good. He's elite at play driving, at shot generation, chance generation, all that stuff. And this guy's right alongside with them, right? And this guy's no muffin, right? Will Smith is a great offensive player in his own right, and obviously has some great chemistry with Macklin Celebrini. So I believe and agree with everything you said. I'm excited about San Jose again this year, randomly. Just a fun young team. I love William Eklund. Give me some Jeff Skinner. I like some Jeff Skinner because, like you said, I mean, on a Stanley Cup contender, Edmonton, we're not throwing Skinner out there, but these guys are out there playing shinny, okay? Putting the puck between their legs and just having a gay old time. So you got Jeff Skinner out there. I think there's lots to like about the San Jose team. And I think, Will Smith is in line for a big boost here. I could see him cresting 60 points for sure this season. No periffs to be seen, right? But 20 power play points, I think, is in the wheelhouse as well. It's going to be a good year to get Will Smith. What's his APL ADP?
He is going at 178 in the APL. So, down there towards the end, last 3 or 4 rounds.
Oh, my God. This guy's a legend. All right. Get him in your lineups.
All right, Blake, take us home. You got Marco Rossi here, and we are getting some bullish stuff on him in camp here as well.
Ooh-wee. Give it to me, Neil. This man's name is not Neil. It's Marco Rossi. All right. I'm sorry that we'll edit that out. Marco Rossi. This is an interesting development just based on what we heard all offseason, right? It didn't sound good. Like, obviously, we all know the story about what happened in the playoffs with Marco Rossi. First off, in the regular season, this guy pops for 60 points, 82 games. big part of the offense, the supplementary offense there for the superstars on this team. And then in the playoffs, he gets 11 minutes average time on ice and kind of fizzles out, right? So he's obviously pissed about that. There's contract disputes, and they end up re-upping with him on a bridge deal. I think it was a 3-year deal. But because of that, this guy's been left for dead out here in these fantasy streets. Like his APL ADP is 217.6. Like that means like there's some leagues that weren't even drafting him, right? Like it's wild stuff. You know, if you look at what he did last year, he was trotted out in all kinds of offensive situations, acquitted himself really well. I think he's going to get back to top 6 deployment here that he saw last year. I mean, what we've seen so far in camp and in preseason, he's centering the top line with Cap and Boldy. Is that any good, right? ADP 217. What? No. Okay, that's showing no good. You know, Jay Hines. What do you know? What do you say, my man? He's all over the place. I don't know. 11-minute Rossi. Now he's line 1. I don't know. But if that sticks, I think Rossi has the potential to be, you know, one of the top scorers from our sleeper list. I think he has an outside chance of getting some power play one time, certainly right off the hop here, because the Zucchini man at Zuccarello, he's injured. And he's a mainstay on that top power play for the most part, right? So I think Rossi is going to get a good look at line 1, power play 1 right out the gate here. This he's good to go. And digging in on some of Rossi's metrics, like this is a guy that's he's a net front player as well, very good net front player, gets a lot of individual scoring chances for because of it. In Corey Schneider's all 3 zone data, this guy was in the upper echelon in things like rebounds per 60, deflections per 60, shots off of high danger passes per 60, right? Those are all metrics that lead to a pretty high shooting percentage, right? Which Rossi did have last year. He had 17.6%, right? He's in tight getting shots and he's getting high danger passes. So I feel like that shooting percentage is somewhat sustainable if that kind of holds, right? And if he is in the top line, it sounds like it might. So early opportunity for Rossi. I think, you know, he has a chance to really show this management group like, hey, F around and find out. All right, I'm Marco Rossi. It's the Rossi Revenge Tour here, folks. And I think that he's definitely got a bee in his bonnet. He's motivated to show this team kind of, you know, what the mistake they made in the playoffs last year. And I think he's going to be in for a big year. And his ADP, it's shocking.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree. Another player that I was definitely going to bring to the table if you didn't nominate him before I got a chance to. I have him projected for 53 points this year, but yeah, get him off to a hot start here, get him some power play one time early in the year, maybe get him on that line 1 early in the year, put Rossi with Boldy and Kaprizov together for a minute, let those guys all cook together. That's a best case scenario for sure. And even if it is just to start the year and, you know, Eriksson Ek takes over some of that and Zuccarello comes back and they do demote him at some point, like get yourself in on Rossi right now when the strike while the iron's hot here, get him in while the going's good, and then you can react as you need to later on. But at this kind of ADP, like he's not being thought about in drafts. And that is an oversight at this point, especially given what we've seen in terms of the early deployment. All right, we've made it to the end of another Sleepers episode. If you haven't already, click the link in the description. Join the Discord community. Come talk fantasy hockey with us all day and all night, every day of the year. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do. It really does help us out, but that is going to be all that we've got for this episode. So hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. All the microstats you heard today came from All 3 Zones, terrific paid resource. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying the music for this podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.